In a few weeks, Jamaicans will know whether their light bills will be increased. This is in the context of a pandemic that has destabilized economies across the globe. Prices of goods and services are increasing. Businesses and households have felt the effects. We're also in the throes of an energy transition. How is Jamaica performing? Hello, I'm Jovan Johnson, and thank you for joining us for this Gleaner Editors Forum. Special welcome to our guests from the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS. We have President and the Chief Executive Officer, Michelle Gantois, Chief Financial Officer, Vernon Douglas, Senior Vice President for Generation and Business Development, Joseph Williams, Senior Vice President for Energy and Delivery, Blaine Jarrett, and Senior Vice President for Customer Services, Ramsey McDonald. Of course, we're joined by a team of senior journalists from the Gleaner, Kimon Francis, Stephen Jackson, and Edmund Campbell. Thank you as well to our online audience. We're streaming live on YouTube for this first 30 minutes of our Editors Forum today. Please share your questions or comments, and we'll put them to our guests. The forum will flow like this. We'll invite our guests on the spot to make a 2-minute opening statement on their portfolios for us. We start with you, Mr. Conklin.
Well, first, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, of course, to come here. Really to the people of Jamaica and to your listeners, to the audience, and more importantly also to our consumers. I think it's pretty obvious that we're all living in a difficult period. So the team you see here assembled is pretty tired because we've been working a lot trying to sort of handle a lot of the pressure to continue to perform the sort of impeccable service we really bring to our customers that the people deserve here. So, you know, a message we want to give from the get-go is we're very aware of the difficulty that the inflation, the escalation of prices, that the price of fuel and the price of electricity is bringing in terms of people. And so we're doing our part, really fighting to maintain the level of service that people are used to, despite all the horrible consequences of something that's happening on the other side of the world. We're happy to have the opportunity today to expose a little bit more in details what we've been sometimes behind the scenes, things that are not always visible to people, but that really brings a lot of benefit, we hope.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gantois. Yes.
Thank you, Jovan. So my name is Vernon Douglas, and I'm really grateful to be here with you and all the listeners of Gleaner online. And of course, my job as Chief Financial Officer involves, quite frankly, ensuring that we are able to bring electricity consistently to all our customers in a way that's reliable and predictable and efficient. So I'm happy to be with you and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Our audience asking us for us to speak a little louder so they can hear them as well.
Thank you, Jovan. Good afternoon or good day, Jamaica. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And my name is Ramsey McDonald. I'm the Senior Vice President for Customer Services. And my job is to make your business opportunities and transactions with JPS a memorable and one that is desirable for all customers. Over the last couple of years, it has been a very trying period as we've gone through the COVID pandemic, but JPS is constantly looking at ways to improve the experience that you have each and every day, and we continue to strive to improve the service delivery to our customers. And over this period, it has been not only challenging, but also rewarding as we've gone through a number of changes in transitioning to a more digital platform. And so, although the challenges exist, we're looking forward to making the experience for all our customers a memorable one and giving you the choice and opportunity to do the business as best as you can in your way, in your style, in your time. And so we continue to look forward to the support and continue to improve as we go along. Thank you.
In your way, in your time and style. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Blaine Jarrett. I'm the Senior Vice President with responsibility for the power system. My responsibility entails the transmission grid, entails the distribution grid, entails engineering, and all that support functions to make the grid function and deliver power to our customers. It has been a challenging time over the last year or two since COVID. But despite that, I am really proud of our staff that they have gone through difficult times out there on the front line, ensuring that we do have power to serve the nation of Jamaica and all our customers. We take very great pride in how we serve our customers. We go beyond the call of duty to ensure that the reliability is up. We go beyond the call of duty to ensure that we continue to implement and integrate smart technologies into the grid to ensure that our supply to our customers. We have seen in recent times where we have been impacted by a number of events, but notwithstanding that, we are committed to the cause, and you'll be hearing more from me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Good morning, listeners. My name is Joseph Williams. I have responsibility for the generation fleet. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Generation. It's my responsibility to ensure that the just under 1,000 megawatts of installed generating capacity on the island is available to serve the island's demand for energy on any given day and at any given time. So we take that responsibility very seriously. What we focus on is to ensure that the assets remain reliable so they can serve the demand, and also that we do it at the lowest cost possible. With the high prices of fuel, we ensure that we take great care to ensure that the fleet is dispatched to ensure that you're always served with the lowest cost possible at any given time on any given day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the JPS team. My colleagues, Kimon Francis and Edmund Campbell, are joining me. They'll be able to ask some questions in a moment. To you, Mr. Gantor, have you gotten any word from the Office of Utilities Regulation in relation to your request for a rate increase? And if so, what is that?
Well, we're in constant dialogue, of course, with the OUR on this and on a number of topics. We're engaging them on rate adjustments, but also on a lot of different initiatives that we hope will improve the service we give to the public. So I have Vernon here, who's in constant dialogue with them on a number of initiatives. Happy for you to jump in.
But I just want to know for now, has the rate increase been granted?
Javon, so thank you for the question. I think it's probably important just to share with, provide a bit of context behind that. So what we are required by license to file an annual adjustment, which is a combination of many things. It's called a rate application, but it really, predominantly, that's probably an end result versus what it actually is. And I think it's important to share, the annual adjustments about, looking at the demand that we've had for the past year, what we expect for the future, and how other elements in terms of cost investments and how those are amortized using electricity sales, and if electricity sales relative to the current pricing, if that results in a change in rate. And that's what the process is. So more directly to your question, we expect to hear from the regulator in terms of the overall application to around the end of this.
Okay. And remind us again, what have you applied for and why?
So as I mentioned before, it's an annual adjustment. We apply, there are some standard true-up items in terms of what the quantities of sales were, did we suffer any FX losses in terms of foreign exchange losses or gains, and what our demand is likely to look like, what our capital investments are going to be looking like. And those form part of an overall picture where we and the regulator agree, make changes to structure the future in terms of our planned investments and how that look relative to demand and to prices. It informs a rate, whether upwards or downwards, depending on what we do.
Okay. So I've heard a lot from the JPS team, or your colleagues talking about the COVID and the impact and so on. Is it that JPS had to apply for it this year in light of what wasn't happening, increasing prices and so on? Could JPS have foregone it for this period, or was it just absolutely necessary?
Standard requirement of our license, we must file it.
You must apply for a rate increase.
No, we must file an annual return. It's
Right.
not, it's really not, as I say, it's not a rate increase that we file an annual return, which is basically what's the state of the affairs. It informs rate, but it has, to quite frankly, most of the elements are not around rates. Interestingly, you mentioned COVID and that sort of thing. Some of the things, what we had to do, elements of our filing required extraordinary requests, things that we did not foresee, because either the landscape has changed in terms of our investment outlook, and those elements were involved in our filing in terms of how we have had to changes that we recommend in terms of our capital investment program, either some assets we plan to have invested in, to delay those, change those, because of COVID-related supply chain issues that involves either impact on price and other stuff that we thought necessary to bring to the regulator, as well as other needed investments like repairs that we have to do urgently to some of our power plants that we would not have envisioned 4 years ago or 3 years ago when we made our overall rate case or business plan to the regulator. So those are other elements I think that are quite necessary and to bring to the understanding that what the conversation involves.
But there's some adjustment that's very likely.
All of these decisions inform rates either upward or downward.
Has it ever gone downward?
Yes, it
Yes,
has.
it does.
I think importantly, and something of course that's always visible, is that we spend between $80 million and $100 million per year, every single year, for all the structure that people see, the poles, the transformers, the wires to bring the electricity, as well as other forms of investment to maintain all the equipment to bring electricity to the homes of our listeners. What we've seen in recent months is indeed supplies of equipment delaying the supply of equipment because of supply chain issues somewhere else in the world. We've seen some prices increase very materially. And so we've gone back to, as part of that big exercise with the OU1, says we also see that happening. The normal expenses, the normal capital expenditures we're envisioning have changed in terms of amount and timing. And so we put it to them and says, here is the consequences. So what we doing as the energy expert is to, together with the OUR, is with the risk, for example, of postponing or canceling some investments, because at a much increased price, they would have an impact on the tariff. We are not taking the decision, to be clear, it's the OUR, but at least we're talking, we're advising, we're talking to them, and eventually, all these elements about reliability, safety, the need for investment, but also the impact on tariffs are taken into account. So that's part of a very large discussion with them that is not just about tariff, but it's about everything related to the production of electricity.
Got a question from a member of our audience. They're asking, why is it that I'm using all the conservative measures and my light bill is so high? I mean, we don't know what their conservative measures are, but anybody can take that.
Well, I can probably jump in. As I think we all recognize one of the biggest inputs that goes into the production of electricity is fuel. And we all can relate to the fact that that has gone up significantly, somewhere in instances somewhere between 30 to 40%, and it varies between the type of fuel. And therefore, it will take a material reduction in somebody's use to actually just to come back to square one. So, what we do encourage our customers, because of that reality that we all face, whether we drive in a motor car or we're using electrical equipment, that because of the natural consequence of these inputs the prices moving astronomically, serving is the best means of curtailing costs. But indeed, you will not necessarily conserve, because electricity is needed for regular operations, and therefore, you will not necessarily come back to square zero.
To give you half of your electricity bills, or the electricity bills of our listeners, is fuel. Half of it is fuel. And there's another 25% which are fixed payments to other producers of electricity and taxes. But half of it is fuel, and what we've seen in recent months, because of the supply chain issues, COVID, and now the war in Ukraine, what we've seen is the price of fuel, for example, the price of gas, going from an average of $3 prime MBTU, which is the measure we use, up to $5.50 or $6. So it doubled in a matter of weeks in February. Imagine, so that increase, doubling, feeds into half of the price. The price of oil has increased also, and we still produce some of the electricity using oil. The price of oil has gone to more than $100 per barrel. So those events far away from Jamaica has fed into a mechanical increase in the tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of consumers see, plus other seasonal factors, including the temperatures and some others. But the price of fuel is probably the main factor that explain, that even if you have the same behavior at home or in your businesses, the price mechanically increases.
And Johan, I think probably you'd have heard in Joseph's opening statement, how obsessed we are in terms of ensuring that we deploy the best generation mix. Probably, Joseph, you can probably share some perspective on that.
Yes, so definitely what we look at on a daily basis, ongoing basis, to ensure that the customers are served with the plants that are using a combination of the cheapest fuel and uses fuel most efficiently. So at all times, that's what we look for. And the other plants that would be less efficient are really on standby in case you have cases of emergencies or where there are intermittency in renewables output and it falls off suddenly, then we may have to start that. But generally, what they're being served with is the lowest cost producer at any point.
But I think what some people complain about, and maybe it is that you can clear it up, is that even with JPS transforming itself, modernizing its infrastructure and so on, the cost of the electricity, the cost of fuel and so on is passed directly to the consumer. So even with JPS transitioning and modernizing, the customers complain that we're not seeing any material reduction in bills. How do you square those?
Yeah, I can start and then my colleague can obviously jump in. First, as we said, once you have 75% of the bill on which we have zero control, we acting and we're spending a huge amount of time on really understand or cost or processes or procedures, the way we work, the way that's really where we spend a lot of time. We're also working, of course, with the fuel suppliers, with the government to try to minimize the impact of the other factors, the taxes, the fuel and so on. But we have less control on that. So what we're doing really is fighting on the part of the bill that are, the cost, the processes, engagement with customers.
But you do realize what customers see is that while you're modernizing and your functions are becoming more efficient, you're saving, that is the company saving. But customers are questioning, why are we not saving too?
Well, once again, because you have mostly an increase, dramatic increase because of the cost of fuel, but the improvement in the processes and the way we conduct the business has two consequences. First, the cost would probably be even higher had we not spent a huge amount of time and resources in fighting the other battles. The battles where, I'll give you an example that is telling. We have a lot of suppliers for other kinds of services that are coming to us and say, I'm suffering too because of the cost of fuel from the vehicles that I send in the field to do services for JPS, and I can't put them in the field anymore. The fuel is too expensive. And so we have to absorb part of that losses internally. That is not passed through to the customers. So we also on our side making an effort to say, oops, we have to fight all battles so that not all impact go to the customers. So we are also on all sides fighting a lot. And apart from the cost aspect, what is also important is that we're also fighting not just for tariffs, but for the quality of service, for the sort of information we want to give back to customers about how much they can consume, try to give them information in near real time about the amount of consumption so they can control better their behavior at home or in their businesses. So that's another battle that is part of the quality of the service we offer, not just, of course, the tariff.
Okay. Yes.
If I may, and they're certainly benefiting from the modernization, and the question is, what if we hadn't modernized, then what would be the
I don't think it's putting it like that, because it's not a question of what if we didn't modernize, but if you're modernizing and your costs are going down and you're providing a more efficient service and so on, customers are expecting to see some benefit.
Right.
I don't think they're saying,
yes.
It's not a question of what if you
right.
didn't.
And in fact, they are seeing it. It's just that the variables are moving. So let's look at one of the big monetization, which would be fuel diversification, which would have, is the big question there, are we benefiting from that? If we hadn't converted or changed out some of the plants to use natural gas, more efficient plants as well as more efficient fuel, if I may say, customers would be seeing maybe 2 to 3% higher bills today on the fuel dollars at that point in time. But the fact is, fuel would have moved. But if we had not done that, and not to mention the reliability that they are getting from the new assets that we would have put in during the modernization.
Thank you, and I'll come to Kim in just a bit, but just to give some context, the Jamaican government has an almost 20% stake in JPS as well, so that's important as well to note. Plus, ER licenses regulated, comes through Parliament, it's approved. We do know that earlier this month, the Electricity Committee, the parliamentary committee that's reviewing the Electricity Act, the minister said that to put a pause on the works because of changes happening globally and so on. But did any concerns at all emerge for JPS through that process?
Through what process?
The review of the Electricity Act in the Parliament.
Well, it's a process that has started, more than a year ago, and so it has gone through numerous iterations. We made a number of presentations, they're all public. Reviewed, and we showed the explanation behind our position issues. And frankly, we're waiting like everybody else for the results. We hope that eventually the decision that is taken regarding the Electricity Act is the best for the country. We think that there are ways to improve, and we made a lot of suggestions for improvements, and that the country is going into the right direction with that. But understand it's not an easy process. I mean, they have to look at a lot of the dates from 2015, or it's 7 years old, with a lot of different people and companies, of course, expressing an opinion on different bits and pieces.
Yes, people have said, for example, about the monopoly over generation and distribution that you have. That's a big sticking point for a lot of people.
Well, of course, we don't have anymore a monopoly on generation. That is gone now, and every new generation is competitive bid, and we're actually hoping to see a bid for most probably renewable this year. I think that would be a great thing for the country once again. Yes. Yes, we continue to have as a utility a monopoly on the transmission distribution.
Transmission, that's what I meant.
Exactly, yeah, transmission distribution. When you think about it, it's an actual monopoly in every country. You don't want to have the consumers pay 2 times for 2 different wires, differently branded. So it makes sense to have only one set of infrastructure that you pay for. And the way it's done and controlled is by regulation. So it is one of the models that we see here that actually works, and it works pretty well. I worked in many other countries that have adopted a different system. Usually you don't have competition, once again, in transmission, but some countries have competition in distribution of retails. And in one that I always quote in Australia, where I was just before, they had major crises in the last few weeks or in the last few years, because of blackouts, because the government is to take over the operation of the generations and the transmissions, because they were just not fulfilling their mission to bring electricity and to produce enough for the country. That's dramatic. We're talking about Australia.
Thank you. Edmund.
All right, the issue of the Electricity Act that is now being reviewed by Parliament came into play, so I'll ask my question around that. It is clear at this point, based on the meetings that have been held so far, that lawmakers are of the view that the right of first refusal provision in the Electricity Act of 2015, they see this as a barrier to market reform. And they have raised some issues during those discussions. The JPS also during their submission had indicated that they would prefer for that provision not to be touched at all, for it to be preserved. The former Minister of Energy, Philip Baldwin, he was very clear in his pronouncements when he said that the right of first refusal is an anachronism, and he said that it should not continue Auburn Hill, the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, he also was very strong about it and said it should be eliminated, and that the country should reform to the open market for all bidding for generation capacity. And of course, the chairman himself now, which is the current Minister of Energy, Darrell Vaz, he indicated that all the committee members are more or less in agreement that the right of first refusal should be changed. My questions are these. The first, has there been any change in your position since you have commented on the matter in Parliament? Secondly, if government goes ahead to remove the right of first refusal clause, what are the implications for JPS? And the final question in that regard is, if the government and JPS are to reach a compromise, what should that compromise look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start and then Joseph could jump in. No, we haven't changed our opinion. I mean, the opinion we have expressed was just 1 year ago, and I think the economics, the arguments we put forward have not changed. But I'll let Joseph explain, maybe once again for the audience, well, you know, why we believe that it's very important for us to maintain the ROFR as it is, not just for us, but for the stability of electricity supplies for the country. Joseph, you want to go ahead?
Sure, Michelle. Right, so, you know, as we had said at that time, that we believe that it's a right that should be preserved.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you think about what our shareholders would have invested in the generating capacity, and also taking account of our obligations to serve our customers, we believe that that right is appropriately placed. And when you think about it, and the arguments being made about it sort of stifling competition, let's understand fully how it works. The right of first refusal gives you the first option of replacing your generating assets, your existing. But it's not just that you replace it and there are no rules around it. There's an avoided cost that would have been determined by a study that would have been done by the ministry. That's called the Integrated Resource Plan. And that study would have taken into account all the conditions and all the cost inputs that would have gone into what would be the cost of the cheapest source of next power. And that is the cost that we have to meet. So it's not like we have this right and we put it in and we generate power at any cost. If we don't meet that benchmark cost determined by the ministry, with a lot of inputs by consultants taking into account demand and all the market conditions in that regard, we would have lost that right. And then it goes out. So what we have to do is definitely ensure that in replacing those assets, we have to come with the most efficient, most applicable, most reliable assets that can meet that cost benchmark.
But as I said, it is clear from the discussions that have been taking place among the committee members, the last time this issue came up, I'm almost sure that almost 100% of these members, lawmakers, were saying, this is the route that we're going. So I just wanted to know if in fact they insist that they're going to go this route. Clearly, this appeared to be some kind of collision course. What's going to be the outcome? How will JPS approach this matter? How can this be resolved if they insist that they are going in that policy direction?
I think, thank you, Edmund. The perspective I'd share is that at first, I think the lawmakers have been listening to us to explain the market dynamics of which no single element can be, cherry picked. I think that would have been something that they carefully understood. Because, if you should draw a parallel to a apartment block and which is being sold, and you have basement, first floor, middle floor, and it's been sold, and JPS looked at it and bought the apartment block. And then under a remit that elements are more challenging than other elements, elements might present a better business model than other elements. And down the line, somebody look and say, boy, I like that first floor, and the first floor should work differently from the basement. Then you are not necessarily looking at the matter from a holistic perspective. And I think those elements to that parallel that we certainly made clear to the parliamentary committee, that is important, and when you look at market design and market construct, that it is clearly understood that there are elements that are akin to a basement and there are elements akin to a first floor apartment.
But more fundamentally, apart from the interesting analogy from just want to say a couple of words. First, we're not speculating. We can do a lot of scenarios about what would happen to tons of changes to the Electricity Act or others. We'll wait to see what happens. Everybody has an opinion on that, and there were differing opinions on everything, whether it's renewables, the ROFR, and so on. So we'll wait. We don't want to speculate. That's we're too busy, frankly, serving our customers to sort of go into speculation. But another important point is that the ROFR was always part of the delicate balance of right and obligation that was embedded into the license as well. So it's not just a little option that was thrown there to benefit JPS as a gift. It is very much part of the fabric of the license, the philosophy of the license, where it balances the enormous amount of duties we have, guarantee standards, the obligation to serve every customer, to apply the same tariff to them. So we have very, very little freedom in our obligation to the customers. People have to realize that. And on the other side, we have a certain number of rights, and ROFR is part of that right, which, by the way, is especially important because one of our ultimate obligations is to be a guarantor of last resort for the supply of electricity. That means when everybody else fails to supply electricity because there's no sun or no wind for renewable, or they have an issue with their power plants, we are the one on the hook by the license to supply electricity. And that's an enormous role that, of course, is not visible every day. But when people will need that electricity, in time of need, we'll be there. And we can only be there if we have the right assets in good conditions to just turn them on and supply electricity when nobody else can.
Just finally, I'm glad you raised the issue of the right and the fact that it is set out in the license. My final question on that would be then, if it comes to a situation where the lawmakers and the government decide to go in that direction, are you suggesting that the JPS would be willing to take up the matter in court as a legal issue? Are you suggesting that?
And I said very clearly, we're not speculating on what may happen or may not happen in what form, because that's not at all where we are today. So we'll see the decision, the whole decision on the Electricity Act. And as I said, we just hope that the good heads will prevail to maintain mostly the rights of our consumers, because at the end of the day, everything has consequences. We just hope that for the benefit of the country, the Electricity Act take a stronger shape than today for them.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Kimon and then we wrap the segment of our forum. Kimon.
Right, taking it back to the customer now. Customer service has been a sore point in the country for some time. And in the recently published results, the OUR published results of the mystery shopping, JPS ranked number one in customer service, 56%. But despite this, the OUR has said the overall average for utility companies, it was disappointing, and the performances have been described as lackluster. Do you agree with this assessment? And if not, how do you rate your service to the people?
Thank you very much.
Great customer, and Ramsey, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Kimon. Excellent point, and there's no doubting the mystery shopping in terms of the results. Disappointing somewhat in terms of how we serve our customers, because we always strive to give the best to our customers. But when you dissect the information, and there are a couple of factors you need to take into account. So in that mystery shopping, it broke it out into the experience in our offices and the experience through our call center. And if you notice, the experience through the call center ranked a lot higher. I think it was just over 85% in terms of the experience that the customers had there. So that's a positive. Obviously, we recognize that through the COVID pandemic, any business in an office has been very challenging right across the island. And so it meant that some of the adjustments that we've made in our offices have not been as beneficial or as good as we'd want it to be. But that's still a work in progress. What I will say though is that coming out of this, what we've seen is a great shift for customers wanting to do business in their own time and being able to do it whenever they want to. And so the digital platform has allowed us to move that customer experience to a different level. And as I mentioned, the call center has demonstrated that. And what we're seeing is over 50% of our customers have now signed up and are utilizing our mobile app, which then speaks volumes as to how our customers want to be served. We still have challenges in trying to reach everyone, and that's still a work in progress. And what we're looking to do each and every day in our offices, and just to give you an idea, in the offices, that experience obviously wasn't the great one. We've made significant strides to reduce wait times in our offices. But what we're simply saying to our customers, we're putting in these digital platforms that will allow you to do your business with greater convenience. It's a learning process, and it doesn't fit everyone. And for those who aren't able to readily fit into it, we're working with them to transition them to the best fit possible. So the results, while somewhat disappointing, there are nuggets of positivity in there that say to us that we can do better, we'll continue to strive to do better, and our customers are now working along with us to do business in a different manner. So it's something that we can build on and we'll continue to work on.
Yeah, if I can jump in as well. I mean, that's a topic where we are moving the whole company. Started 2 years ago under my leadership to move the whole company towards being obsessed with customer service and the quality of the customer service, not just the interaction that people hear on the phone or see in the offices, but also what we do behind the scene to make sure that we connect on time and that we supply the right level of services. It's a journey. With humility, we're not there yet. We're changing a lot of different processes and mentality into the companies, and we receive the messages from the customers that they're not happy yet, and we take that with once again with humility to improve. I think that over the last few months and few years, we have started that long journey by making progress on the way the customers can interact with us, including the app, but not only. We have changed the level and the training of the call centers. We are changing the way we interact with customers in the physical offices. We are improving behind the scenes, and that's a difficult part, to be honest, the services we provide when customers, commercial customers, for example, require complex connections, when people require new service, we still have to do better service there. And finally, one of the things we really want to bring is going to take a little bit more time because it's very complex, is to feed back to customers the progress of their request. For the moment, it has been a bit too much in the past where customer asks for something and then it sort of disappears in the void, and then we come back to them when it's done. And we realize that the uncertainty, the lack of knowledge about the progress of their request is something that they struggle with. And so we want to bring more knowledge to the customers about the status of their requests more often. It requires quite a bit of investment, quite a bit of change of process, but that's definitely a process we have started internally so that people know better, for example, what they're consuming and when, what is the status of their new connections, when they change from one place to another, and so on and so on. We also allow the customers, for example, now to report outages and broken street lamp through the app. So we want that two-way dialogue. We want the customers to be partners in the way we serve them so we can act faster. Doesn't mean we can send a truck directly to serve them and repair. That's part of the limitation we have with our cost base. We can't have an infinite number of vehicles and staff to go to every emergency, but at least we know better when the customers have a need for repair, and we can dispatch the proper team in the right time.
Thank you very much, and that's all the time we have for this section of Gleaner Editors Forum. I want to thank Michelle Gantois, President and CEO of the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, Vernon Douglas, Chief Financial Officer, Joseph Williams, the Senior Vice President for Generation and Business Development, Glenn Jarrett, Senior Vice President for Energy Delivery, and Ramsey McDonald, Senior Vice President for Customer Service. Thank you so much as well to my colleagues, Kimon Francis and Edmund Campbell. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.